And that night, I'm sitting out on my balcony, and this voice just goes, "How dare he do this to me? Does he not know who I am? I'm a witch." I started painting black pagan symbols on my face whenever I did a podcast or a video. I started studying hell. Hell was fascinating to me. I could feel the presence of something in the corner of my room. I see these horns and this goat head, and this body is like half male, half female. And as it walked closer to me, it put its hands up like this.
Hello and welcome back to the Almost False podcast, where I interview regular people with incredible stories. Today's guest is someone you may or may not recognize, but at some point she was a famous YouTuber, having over 500,000 followers. She embraced being a witch, and her videos were all about that. And no, the title is not clickbait. That actually did happen, but she didn't get there in a day. So this interview is her life story, explaining how she became one of the most famous witches on YouTube, how that led to her encounter with Baphomet, and how the rest of her life changed after that. It's wild and it's super interesting, so I hope that you stick to the end, because in order to understand the most intense parts of her story, we first have to go back to when everything started for her. So come with me and learn about the fascinating story of Laura Ansell.
Well, I'd had tarot readings before. My mum would go and see tarot readers, so I went and saw some of them. And so I wasn't opposed to it, and it wasn't unfamiliar for me. I got into tarot readings more deeply through watching them on YouTube. So I ended up, building my clothing line and selling my art and selling my clothes. And I did go to New York, but I did meet someone. I met a man there. And it was 4 years of just it's a situationship was what it was. And the torment of that, which I'd never had that before, it made me search for answers rather than me having the maturity to say, this person is not right for me. I tried so hard to make it work. And so what I found myself doing was finding tarot readers online. And I didn't type in tarot readers. It's actually very common. So I would type in things like, why is this man doing this? Why is this man doing that? And eventually these readers just kept coming up. And I clicked on one, and she described the woman and she described the man. I was like, that's us. Oh my gosh, how does she know? And so I found myself subscribing and always waiting for her to post. And then I found other readers. And so eventually, because I was impatient, I just thought, I'm going to get my own cards and I'm going to read these cards myself. And when I bought them, I just sat down with them, and my mother was there. She was like, oh, this is exciting. Oh, I'm so happy for you. Let's go on. Do what do you know what they mean? Like we sat at the kitchen table and I gave her a tarot reading, and it was pretty accurate, but then at the same time I knew her. So I was like, well, I don't know. So I ended up, she brought people, like she said, oh, I've told so that you're a tarot reader. She wants to come for a reading. And before I knew it, I had people knocking on the door wanting a reading, and it was accurate. What I was saying was accurate. So I put it online. I made my own YouTube channel. Started posting often.
Yeah. And that became very successful very fast. We'll get to it. But I'm curious. I don't plan on ever getting a tarot reading. And I know I'm not the only one who thinks like that. So can you explain just in simple terms, what is tarot cards, and like, what do you do essentially when you read the cards?
You've got higher cards and lower cards, so major and minor cards. The major cards mean that this is imminent. This is what's going to happen in your life. The minor cards are things that are changeable. I think they're based on astrology. They're actually based on scriptures in the Bible, but the inversion of them. So if anyone wanted to go on a research thing, you can connect them back to the Bible. And each card has a meaning, but I didn't always go with the meaning. I went with the voice. So it was like a feeling. It's like, okay, I'm going to pull this card out. You've asked a question. I'm going to pull this card out. I feel like it's this. And then it was right.
So there's a voice telling the reader what cards to pick?
No, there's a voice that tells you what the card means for the person that you're reading for.
Okay.
And every reader reads differently. Everyone has their own style.
So I think that's the understanding that I'll get, because I definitely won't go and ask someone that does that, because I'm definitely not interested in getting read my cards. I don't even want to know. You could take that. You could keep that for yourself. But I want to transition into actually your YouTube channel. How did we already talked about actually how your interest with tarot kind of became something that you started posting online, but what happened when you started posting these things online?
Well, I gained a following quite quickly, and I started getting a lot of messages from people wanting their own private reading. So at first, that was never the plan. The plan was just to post online, and that was it. And maybe it helps someone, and maybe it doesn't. But I just started getting messages and messages saying, "Can I have a private reading? Can I have a private reading?" And so I just kind of did what other readers did. I let people book in for half an hour or an hour, and I just got booked up. Solid, but to the point where I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it because it was not, I wasn't prepared for it. So eventually I had an 8-month waiting list. I remember someone emailing me in January, and I was like, well, I can book you in September. And they're like, is this a joke? I said, no, I'm literally booked up, and I'm reading 5 times a day, 5 days a week, and I'm exhausted, and I'm booked. Because what people were doing was they knew I was busy. They knew I was getting booked. So they would book multiple readings. So I would, like, you could buy a packet of 3 or a packet of 5 or 10. And a lot of people were buying 10 because they knew they wanted me every month. So they'd put down a chunk of money, and I'd give them the dates, and there you go. So everyone was doing that, which meant that I'm literally booked for 8 months, and I can't fit you in anywhere. I can't do any more than what I'm doing. I'm exhausted anyway. It ran my life. So on the one hand, everyone's looking at you going, oh my gosh, look how successful you are. This is amazing. Like, you work for yourself, you have your own business, your own website, you've got your house, you've got your car, you've got everything you need. You're completely self-sufficient. How amazing. Look at what Laura's doing. But I just got emptier and emptier. I was so alone. I was completely isolated all the time.
That's actually what I was going to ask. And I'm curious because also you don't get booked like that by having 20 subscribers. So how many subscribers did you get? How fast did it happen? And how did you deal with this sudden rise in success and fame?
Well, I didn't actually have that many followers. I gained 20,000 in the first 3 months, and it never changed. So compared to what, like, in the future, I had a lot more. So I didn't even have that many. It's just that I had good quality followers. Everyone that's followed me genuinely wanted to hear from me and wanted to work with me. And it was also that time where I'd manifested all these things. I was thinking, well, I have an apartment. It's nice, it's safe, it's clean, it's a nice apartment. I have a car. I have money in my bank account. And yet I've never been so lonely in my life. I was happier when I had no money and no car, and I was struggling at uni. I was happier then. So it was isolated. It was lonely. And there was just nothing. There was nothing. And then you've got people constantly wanting something from you, constantly messaging you. I want this. I want, help me. Like, I'm not God. That's why I was tired. I was trying to play the role of God for everyone. And people I would wake up to DM everything. Just, it was exhausting. Everyone wanted a piece of me, and I had nothing to give. And I had no support and no love being poured in.
I can only imagine. That sounds like a very difficult thing to go through. So obviously a big part of your story is an encounter that you had with Baphomet. But before we get there, there's something that happened that made you dive deeper into darker kinds of witchcraft. Because so far we're just talking about tarot reading, which is a fairly common, kind of witchcraft. A lot of people do that. It's pretty out in the open. But what happened for you to get into some of the darker stuff?
I think it was just that I got that the longer time went on, that voice of like, no one likes you, you're not lovable, that got louder. My life got lonelier, And the more I lived my life and tried to go after the things that maybe I thought would make me happy, and then found out that they didn't, the darkness started to creep in. So I, being in England and being so lonely, my father said to me, like, why don't you come and live in Australia? My father had moved to Australia. My parents had divorced. And so I was like, well, maybe that's it. Maybe I need to live in the sunshine with all the other tarot readers, because I'm alone here. I'm the only one. And I did that. I lived in Australia for 4 years, and I was surrounded by it, by the occult. So when you're around it, you get deeper into it. There was a tarot reader on every corner. There was breathwork ceremonies and women's circles and womb work, and it's the occult but with a sparkly face. So that sort of emerged, and I got more and more and more and more and more into that. With the emptiness and the loneliness was sort of creeping and getting bigger and bigger. And then I got into a relationship with a gentleman in Australia, and it was again the manifestation of, no one likes me. If I say to him, do you even like me? I don't feel like you even like me, because there was never like a full-on commitment from him, despite the fact that we ended up getting married. It was kind of, I don't know why we did it, but when he asked me to marry him, I thought, oh my gosh, someone does love me. Like, this is real. And I'm like, why can't I feel it? I'm broken. Something's wrong with me. Like, what's going on? And we ended up getting married, and I ended up getting pregnant on the wedding night. So he said to me on our wedding, I'm going to get you pregnant tonight. And he actually did. And then was horrified when I told him I'm pregnant. And his response was like, well, what are you going to do? I was like, what do you mean? What am I going to do? I'm going to be pregnant for 9 months, and then I'm going to give birth. What do you mean? What am I going to do? He's like, no, are you going to keep it? It's like, why would I not keep it? I said, we're married. We have a house. Why would I not keep it? Like, I'm pregnant. He was really opposed to it. I don't think he could handle he definitely couldn't handle the responsibility of a wife. I always kind of showed up as the husband in the relationship because he was more feminine, probably. I took care of us. I paid all our bills. I made sure his car was running. I did all the man stuff, and I worked, and he didn't do anything. So I was already pretty tired, and I was already in a place where I felt like I had to make people like me, and I had to do things to make people like me. Like, if I pay his bills, maybe he'll change. If I buy him a new bike, maybe he'll change. If I buy him a holiday, all these things. So I'm already flat out exhausted. And then when I got pregnant, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even move. I couldn't even get out of bed. I was going to be sick. It was really, really bad. And so suddenly I've gone from like this woman that's doing everything for him to a woman that can't do anything for him, which I think he struggled with. And he didn't want this child. And he wouldn't let me tell anyone that I was pregnant. So I didn't have any family in Australia at this point where we were living. I only had his family, and he didn't want me to tell them. So one friend knew that lived 8 hours away, and that was it. So it was really lonely, and I'm scared. And I have this husband who doesn't want me to go through with this or something. And I'm like, what do I do? And I managed to find a therapist / healer / shaman woman. And I had a phone call with her as a therapist. And she was like, are you safe? Are you sure you want to be there? I was like, well, I don't know what to do. I told her everything. And we had an hour chat. And when I came out of the office where I was, he was standing there. And he's pretty tall. Like, he's like 6'3". I'm 5'7". So he's kind of like here. He was like, what was that? I said, what do you mean? He was like, what was that? I was like, well, I had a phone call with that woman this morning. You know that. He's like, yeah, but why did you tell her everything? I said, because I have to tell someone. I'm so scared and I'm so lost. I don't know what to do. I said, you're not talking to me. You're not letting me tell your family. Like, what do you want me to do? I need to tell someone. And he was like, you know what? Just get out. You need to leave. His exact words were, you need to leave. I was like, what do you mean leave? Go where? He's like, I don't care, but you need to leave. You need to go. I don't want you here anymore. And he left. I think he went to his mum's. And I pretty obedient, to be honest with you. I've always been obedient. So I just did what I was told. He doesn't want me here? That's fine. It's that voice. It was like, well, yeah, no one likes you, Laura. So just pack your stuff and go. So I got my suitcases out and I just piled my whole 4 years of being in Australia into these 2 suitcases and left this house that I was paying the rent on. And he drove me like 8 hours back to a town that I lived in when we met and dropped me off. And he just kissed me on the forehead and he was like, you're going to be fine. You're the strongest woman I know. And then he just left. I have never been so scared in my life. Like the world had made me at that time very good at surviving, like really good at thinking on my feet, always land on my feet, always come out the other end. But at this point, I was like, I don't know what to do. Because the part of me was like, well, this is my baby. And the other half of me was like, okay, you're going to be a single mom. Well, that sucks, but it is what it is. I'm going to have to go back to England. So this child isn't going to get a chance to know his or her father because he's going to stay in Australia. That sucks too. That's not bad for me. That's bad for this child. I hate that for this little one, right? So I've got all these thoughts and I decided in the end to terminate the pregnancy. And it was not a decision that I was like, okay, I've made that choice. I'm going to do it and I'm okay with it. It was I have to do this. That's how I felt at the time. I have to do this. I don't want to. And I made myself take that tablet. I had to force it down me. It was the worst. And that night or that day, I was not the same. Like I was not the same. I went through the termination. And for anyone that's had a termination, they know you full on go into labor. They don't tell you that. You go into complete labor. It's the only way your body can expel this. So I go into labor at 10 a.m. and the pain starts kicking in. And I've never felt so much physical pain in my entire life. I've got no painkillers, nothing. So this is all just me feeling everything. By 3 p.m., I am distraught in agony. And I'm in this hotel room and no one knows I'm doing this. And I am like going around my hotel room, like, okay, lay on the bed. Just breathe for a second. Okay, lay on the floor, breathe for a second. Go into the bathroom, lay on the bottom of the shower, lay on the floor. Like I just circled my hotel room for like a good 2 hours. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I just didn't even recognize myself. And I remember laying on the shower, on the floor, like gripping the glass of the shower door, begging for my life. I'm thinking that I have spirit guides. I think that I've got angels around me all the time and that I have a team that love me, that are always following me and always want the best for me. And yet no one shows up. Nothing. And I was like, well, it's my fault. It's because I'm in so much distress. I can't hear them. No, it's because they're probably laughing at me. They probably loved every second of it. And I'm gripping onto this glass in agony. And he calls me. He calls me at 4 p.m. Well, it's FaceTime. I'm looking for this pot in the house. I can't find it. Do you know where it is? Like, he was completely oblivious to the whole thing. I told him he just oblivious to the whole thing. It was horrible. But that night, I switched. Terminations, they're sacrifices. They're blood sacrifices. And I know that's horrible for women who've had them to know that, but that's what it is. It is a ritual sacrifice. And that night, I'm sitting out on my balcony and I know something entered me, like something switched. And I'm sat out on the balcony and I'm watching this storm come over. And I can feel the thunder going through my body and it feels powerful. And this voice just goes, how dare he do this to me? Does he not know who I am? I'm a witch. And you've just left me here to die. How dare you? I'm done. And I felt it like possession. I didn't label it possession at that moment, but I was like, oh, I feel powerful. I'm done with this. I've just spent the last 18 months taking care of this man, loving him, taking him on vacation, making sure he has everything he needs, paying all his bills, giving him a nice home, getting him jobs, doing all this stuff, loving him, complimenting him. He's shining and glowing because I've literally poured all my love into him. And he left me for dead. I am done. And so that was it. Everything changed. I went home. I stayed with my mother for 4 months whilst I was looking for a house. And when I got into that house, all my work was dark.
What do you mean by your work was dark? How did it change from what you were doing before?
I was suddenly really interested in deities, Hecate, the deity of witchcraft. I was interested in Lucifer. I was interested in Hades. Hades was fascinating to me at that time. Hades and Persephone. So my work became a bit more pagan style, I guess. There was paganism there. So it went from being like pink, sparkly tarot cards with butterflies on to black tarot cards with skulls on. I really took on this label of witch. And of course, I wanted the whole aesthetic to be witchy. So I had cauldrons and I started doing spells, which I'd never done before. I started making potions. I started selling potions, selling oils. Everything had a dark undertone. I started wearing black clothes again. I started painting black pagan symbols on my face whenever I did a podcast or a video. Everything got darker. And when I moved into that house, the experience I had as a child where I'm being constantly plagued by spirits, that came back. And so at first I thought it's in the house, but it wasn't. It was after me. And I think it was probably the third night I woke up and like the bathroom light was on. I was like, that's weird. Did I leave that on? I don't remember leaving it on. Pretty good at turning the lights off, but I switched it off and whatever. Next day I was like, oh, I left the TV on? That's not like me. It's pretty loud. I think I'd have heard it. So I started to notice that lights were coming on and off. TV was going on and off. Fire alarm was going off. There's no candles on. The fire alarm would go off. The fire alarm would go off when I was pulling tarot cards. And there was no candles on, but the alarms would go off. I'd come home and the gas was on. It got worse and worse and worse. And I remember it got to a point where I couldn't sleep. I was woken up one night by this thing pulling at my feet, and that woke me up. And then a few nights later, I woke up to the smell of fire, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've left the oven on. I panicked. I was like, oh my gosh. It was this putrid, rotten, fiery smell. And I jumped out of bed and ran downstairs. And then as I was running downstairs, I noticed that the smell had gone. And so I literally had hell in my room. It was there, and it was not sorry, and it was not obedient, and I was not in control of it. Because before it was like, well, there's this whole spirit world out there, and I can channel these things, and I can call these things in, so I'm in control. Well, I wasn't in control anymore. And so I was so scared to go to sleep because I knew it was there. And it probably went on for like a week where it was really bad and I wasn't sleeping. And I remember I was laying on my bed at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I was so tired. I was like, I'm just going to have a nap. I'm so tired. I'm just going to close my eyes for a second. And as soon as I closed my eyes and fell asleep, I felt this thing try to get into my body, and I could feel the struggle of it like taking over and pulling and trying to get in. And I could just see like static in my dream, like static TV. It was like that. Static, and I could see it moving, and I felt this thing trying to get in. And I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, this is really serious. It's trying to get into my body. So I phoned my friend who's a witch, and I said, you have to help me. Like I'm struggling. And she said, okay, I will remove it. I'll get rid of it for you. Don't worry. It's a man. I said, yeah, I know it's a man. I could feel it was some masculine presence. It was showing up as a masculine presence. And she was like, I'm going to clear it on Tuesday. I'm going to remove it from the house. I said, okay, well, I'm not going to be in the house on Tuesday then, because I don't want to be there for that. I don't want to see it. Who knows if it's going to go quietly. So I booked a hotel. And at 1 o'clock in the morning that night, the fire alarm goes off. Can you believe it? The fire alarm goes off in the hotel room. It wakes me up. And I'm like, what? And I open the door because I'm like, is there a fire? No other alarm is going off. just mine. And then it shuts off. And I phoned her and I was like, have you done it? Because my fire alarm's just gone off. She went, yeah, I'm just about to start. She said, just so you know, though, it's not in the house, it's in you. Okay. I literally it made sense. I could feel it draining the life out of me. It's the weirdest feeling. Possession, you feel this thing in you pulling you down that way. And we know what's down that way. Like your body is being pulled down to hell. It was in me. I managed to sleep. She removed it. I woke up feeling exhausted, but better. And it didn't come back. But what happened was like, I needed to find control now. I can't have this keep happening. So now I need to understand ghosts and I need to understand spirits. So that was when I started talking to them a lot more because I could feel them around me. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to be scared. What's your name? You know, what happened to you? How did you go? Do you know that you're stuck? Do you know that you're in limbo? And so I started studying the realms. Like I started studying purgatory. I started studying Dante's Inferno. I started studying hell. Hell was fascinating to me. So of course I'm studying Hades. That's so incredibly powerful and exciting to me, is to understand hell. And I was living in that for about 2 years. And that was normal to me.
So if I got that correct, it's about that time, during that time period where you had the encounter that I mentioned with Baphomet. Can you talk about that story and what led up to it and what happened that day?
So after my friend removed that spirit from my house, or from me, I switched my rooms over. So I had 2 rooms. One was an office, one was a bedroom. I was like, cool, I feel good now. It's gone. But you know what? This room is like tainted now. So I switch rooms. So office is in the bedroom now, bedroom's in the office. I go to sleep. I'm like, this is lovely. Fresh room. It's like nothing ever happened. It's all good. I get woken up at about 2 in the morning, or 3 in the morning, I'm not sure. And this feeling was in the room. And the only way I can describe it is that God wasn't there. It was complete emptiness. I didn't understand it because I didn't know God then. So I was like, eerie. I could hear sheep bleating in the field next to me. So it felt like I'd woken up into a horror movie. You know that feeling when you're watching a horror movie and you're like, oh my gosh, I know something's about to jump out on me. It was that suspense, like I'm hanging, like I'm dangling, is what it felt like. And I could feel the presence of something in the corner of my room. And I had a huge tall ceiling. It was an old house. It was huge beam ceilings. This thing nearly touched the ceiling, and I had a tall ceiling. And it came out from the corner of my room. And I'm like, what's this? And it gets closer and closer and closer. And as I'm looking, and I'm also trying to understand what I'm seeing, I see these horns and this goat head and this body. And this body is like half male, half female. So I'm like not really understanding what I'm seeing. I'm thinking I'm going delusional because I'm like, well, it's a woman, it's not, it's a man. I didn't understand. And as it walked closer to me, it put his hands up like this. And I was like, wow. And it placed its hands like this on my knees. And because I'm kind of like this at this point. I'm like, well, what's going on? It placed his hands on my knees and it tried to pull my legs apart. And so I immediately recoiled and I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is a real thing. Like, I know that witches were killed because they were accused of sleeping with the devil, basically. That's a thing if you look into witchcraft and the witch hangings. It was like, oh, she's a witch, she slept with the devil. I'm like, this is a real thing. People are doing this because he's here trying to initiate that. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. And I was so scared. I didn't know what to do and I couldn't move. And the only thing that I could do to feel okay, because it wasn't leaving, was to kind of befriend it. It's like Stockholm syndrome. I was like, oh, maybe it's not as bad as I think. Maybe he's not the evil one. Maybe he's the good one, and maybe he's misunderstood, like me. Like I'm misunderstood. Maybe he's misunderstood. And so that softened me to allow for me to feel okay with the fact that this thing, I can feel and see this thing. And it wasn't, it didn't stay very long. It sort of disappeared as I felt safer, it disappeared because I'd let him in probably because the door was now open. I'm like, this is totally fine. I totally accept this being in my room. And so I end up doing loads of research on the Baphomet and what it is and what it represents and why people worship it and how it affects the world and all this stuff. And I ended up buying a big statue, not the little one, like all my other ones. My other ones are dainty. I bought a huge Baphomet. And I wish I had a picture of it still. It was in the back of my office behind me when I did my videos. And every couple of days, I would buy a raw organic steak and slice it up and put salt on it and give it to Baphomet. Because when I spoke to it and said, I was like, I need to give you an offering because you're working in my life. What do you want? All I heard was raw meat. Raw meat. So I was like, okay, well, it's got to be the best. It's got to be organic. It's got to be locally, grass fed and everything. So I was doing that every 2 days until the meat got dry. I'd chuck it out and get him a new one. And I served it on the fine china. And I would sit there and talk to him, and I would feel the presence of all these beings around me, these spirits and these ghosts around me, and I would talk to them. And that was normal for me. And the things that these ghosts, these spirits were telling me, I would go and they would come to me and say, oh, go and tell this person this. So I would, and they go, oh my gosh, how did you know that? I'm like, well, your grandmother came through when I was trying to sleep the other night, or your dad came through and he said this. And it was always accurate. So that consumed my life.
So that encounter with the Baphomet in your room was physical. He touched your knees. He tried to open your, like, at least there's some pulling apart of them, and you probably closed them anyway. But you said like he disappeared. What do you mean? Like he slowly disappeared? He vanished? Like, because he was there and then he wasn't. How did that happen?
Yeah, when I would see a spirit or I'd see something, they would, well, I suppose you could see it in a movie, like they'd appear. Like you're looking at, when you focus on something, you're like, oh, that's blurry. Hold on a minute. Let me get my glasses on. What am I looking at? And then you can see it. That's how these things would come to me. So I'd be like, oh, there's something there. Let me focus. What is that? What is that? And my focus would get in. I'm like, oh, what is that? And I could see it in my mind's eye, and I could feel it on my body. This is just how my gifts work, I guess. Like I can feel things, I can sense things, I can see things in my mind's eye. And so eventually the focus kind of got fuzzy, and I tried to stay focused. I was like, oh, hold on a minute, it's going. I'm trying to, and it just couldn't see it anymore. And then the room got warmer. Like that feeling of emptiness disappeared with him, and that the room was normal again.
Okay. So you couldn't see that as if a regular person was there. It was a different kind of sight that you had.
Yeah. I mean, I have seen things with my actual physical eyes. But a lot of the time as well, it was just, you see it with your mind's eye.
What about the feeling on your knees? Was that the same?
That was physical.
So you felt that, like if I was there, like touching.
Yeah. You can feel like something touch your skin. And then I could feel the pressure. Like the pressure of someone trying to pull your knees open. Like you can feel the pressure. You can feel your body be manipulated. That's a horrible feeling because it's like poltergeist, but on your body. It's physical.
So how did that encounter shift your practices or shift your life?
It brought evil people into my life, actually, if I'm honest. I remember I went on a date at that time, and he grabbed me by the throat on a first date. He's like, can I kiss you? I was like, well, I don't really do that. And he was like, oh, go on. And he grabbed me by the neck. And I was like, and I froze, as anyone. I was like, oh, what? And when I was driving home, I was thinking, like, how did I end up there? How did I end up in that situation? So that's just a small example of what I experienced, but there were like evil things kept happening to me. I started dating one guy and he was violent. And I remember being like, how did I get here? I'm supposed to be, everything was cracking. Okay. I was like, okay, so hold on a second. So I've got the law of attraction and I've got all these angels and I've got all these deities working for me and helping me to have the life that I want. And yet here I am being pushed to the floor by some guy. And I've never been violently attacked by a man before. And he's calling me names and he's telling me I'm worthless and useless and no one's ever going to want me. It's that same thing. It's that same voice, but now it's a physical experience. Now it's someone in your face screaming at you saying, no one's ever going to want you. You're worthless. No one's going to want you. You're this, you're that, you're the other. And it was just so intense. I was like, how did I get here? This doesn't make sense. So my life got really dark in all areas.
What was your goal at that point? What were you seeking through these practices? Was it the same thing that you had been seeking for in the beginning, or did it kind of shift?
I don't know what I was looking for at that point. Probably all my art and my design, my creativity had gone out the window because I'm just trying to survive. I wanted a relationship probably at the time, wasn't in a space to have one. I wanted success. I wanted to be known. I wanted to grow a big following with my work. I wanted to run big retreats. I wanted to have a Bali retreat. That was like the ultimate goal for any new ager. It was like, if you run a Bali retreat, you've made it. So I wanted a Bali retreat. I wanted to be seen because I always felt invisible in the world. I always felt like no one saw me because I had so much depth and I always felt I had more depth than most people. And so people can only see you in the depth that they've seen themselves. And I've been down here in the dark. So I'm like, I'm invisible to everyone. So I think I was just looking for power. I was looking to be seen. I was looking to be recognized.
And did the witchcraft help in any of that?
I think it made it worse. Because actually stepping into witchcraft, less people were following me now. Because people were like, oh, she's gone dark.
So you had a physical encounter with Baphomet, but you also had physical encounters with another being, which that's the part of the story that we're getting into. So what happened the first time you saw him?
So what happened was, I went back to Australia for a year, okay? Because I knew something was going to happen. I was like, I'm going to find something's calling me for real. And it'd been calling me my whole life. And I was like, I think I'm close to it. I could feel I was close. And I thought, I need to just go and be on my own. Somewhere I need tranquility. I'm going to go back to Australia, unfinished business. I'm going to get rid of all my stuff and have a really simple life. And I'm going to go there and I'm going to find what this is. So I went to Australia. And after a few months of being there, it was around January 23. I went to the beach in the morning. No one else was around, just me. And I just felt this feeling of love. Like it hit me. And I was like, oh, that's a feeling I've never felt before. Oh my gosh, I feel so loved. That's like unrecognizable for me. I was like, wow. So what is that? Is that the sand? Is that the ocean? Is that like the wind, the nature breeze, And I was like, oh, there's someone here. I was like, I could feel it. And I looked over and Jesus was just sat there. Like he was just there. It's Jesus. And he was just smiling. And yes, he was smiling with his face, but his whole essence was like smiling, I guess. And he was wearing a white robe. He was glowing. So it wasn't just like, oh, it's in a white robe. It was like an aluminum white robe. It's like shiny, like a star. And I was like, I'm still got my new age brain. So I'm like, are you here for me? And he just did the same thing. I was like, are you here to help me? Nothing. Just stayed there. And so I was like, okay, he's just there. was like, well, maybe he's my new spirit guide. Like, I really just categorized him because that's the only way I could comprehend. It was a tickle of a greeting from him. Anyway, so I just was like, okay, it's Jesus. Jesus is fine. So I went back, got up, and I went home, and I got back on with my life. And what happened was that a moment with him had turned my entire life around, but I didn't understand it. So I go back to my day as normal. I'm doing my yoga training. So I go and do my yoga training for the day. I go meet friends, and they're all talking about, oh, you're going to come to this ceremony. We're doing like a cow ceremony and like a breathwork ceremony, and then we're like an inner child thing. And I'm just sat there listening, and I'm like, what? I don't understand. And this is something I'm qualified at. I do all this with my clients. But suddenly I'm thinking, why are you doing that? It's like, I don't get it. What are you doing? What are you doing again? Inner child work? It's like, okay, why? Why are you doing that? What are you talking about? We've been doing this for years. I don't get it. I was like, but it's not working. Because if it was working, you wouldn't keep going back to do it. It's not working. My brain, like, it was like I was renewed. I had a new brain. Like, I didn't understand. And I tried to understand, but it didn't make sense anymore. And so I went to a retreat a few weeks after the encounter where I was a host. And my co-host had all these women lined up on the floor doing breath work. They're all hyperventilating. And their bodies are like distorting as they're hyperventilating. And they're all sort of like, and I'm looking at them and they're all crying. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, this is demonic. I'd never used that word before. I'd never heard that word before. But I was like, this is demonic. This looks like a room of demons. This doesn't look healthy. This doesn't look like it's healing. This looks like trauma. You're just reliving your trauma over and over again. And you've paid to be here to do that. And you think that helps you? I thought, surely that just stresses your body out more. Why would you have to constantly relive pain? How's that helping? That's like, I was like, I remember thinking, like, that sounds like hell. Isn't that what happens in hell? They kill you, then bring you back to life just to kill you again. This is demonic. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to distance myself a little bit. I got invited to another retreat, and I was like, I'm not going to do that one. I'm just going to sit back, and, my yoga training was happening. I stopped going. I was just like, I don't think I should be doing this. Started researching like yoga and what we're actually yoking with. And suddenly I thought, I don't think I want to yoke with these things, with these deities. So I just stopped going. I was like, I don't care. I've lost my money. Fine. I don't mind. I just couldn't do it anymore. I stopped hanging out with those people. I bought myself a necklace with a cross on it. And all my friends were like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I think I like Jesus now. Like, I don't understand it, but I think I like him. And I don't think that I want to do this anymore. I just don't want to do it anymore. And they were all laughing at me and joking around, but everything they were saying suddenly sounded horrific. And I remember going out with one friend for a drink, and she was telling me about all these men that she'd slept with in that week. And I was thinking, like, I can't hear it. I was like, that's disgusting. I'm sorry. Like, my brain suddenly couldn't hear these things anymore.
So that's very interesting, because most people that believe in Jesus have a traditional, go to church, read the Bible, learn about Jesus that way. For you, it was totally different. You saw him appear. And by the way, was that the same kind of vision that you had talked about with the encounter with Baphomet, or was that different?
He was there. Like, I could see him like a regular person. But it kind of goes in and out. It's difficult to describe when someone doesn't have the ability to do that. But it's sort of, at first it was in the mind's eye. And then as I focused, I was like, oh my gosh, he's actually sat here. Like, this is why I got up and left. Because I couldn't be in his presence, or what was in me couldn't be in his presence.
So what did you do after that? Like, your whole life was built around this, YouTube business, new age things, all of that. And all of a sudden you don't want to do that. So what'd you end up doing?
Well, I gave it up, to be honest with you. I mean, the enemy, he gave, before I started to think, I don't want to do this anymore. I started canceling clients. I threw away my tarot cards. I threw away all the books that I had from the New Age. I threw away crystals and statues and all those kinds of things. I just chucked them in the bin. And then a few things happened. So the first thing that happened was I was offered to co-host a retreat in Bali. Well, would you look at that? That was my dream. And suddenly it was like, oh, I have this opening. I'm looking for a co-host to do this yoga retreat in Bali. Do you want to do it? I was like, wow, this has been my dream for like 8 years. I was like, yeah, I can do that. That's amazing. I said, but I'm not going to do any healing. I'll just talk. I'll go there and I'll be a speaker. So that was happening. And then I went viral on Instagram. And then I went viral on TikTok. So all these things I wanted a Bali retreat. I wanted a following. I wanted people to know who I was. Suddenly I had hundreds and thousands of followers and I have a Bali retreat. And yet I felt nothing. I was like, I still don't want it. I phoned up my co-host and said, I'm really sorry. I know we already sold tickets to the Bali retreat, but I can't do it. I just can't. She's like, well, why don't you give it a couple of weeks and think about it? No, I don't need to think about it. I don't want to do it. It's actually weighing on my shoulders now. I'm done. So I refunded everyone. Just gave the money back. It was like $30,000. Give it back. Don't want it. It's blood money to me now. So I just refunded everyone. And I went home. I went back to England. I was like, I want to go home and go to church. Because in England, like we've got the Church of England here, right? So I was like, I'd always loved church buildings and architecture and beauty. I was like, I want to go to church and sing and read the Bible. And I had a Bible waiting for me at home because, funnily enough, before I got to Australia, the day before I flew, I went for a coffee and I ran into a man there who turned out to be a vicar who said, do you have a Bible? I was like, no. He's like, I'm going to give you one. I've got loads. I was like, all right. He gave me a Bible. I left it at my sister's house, went to Australia, flew back 10 months later. I was like, have you got that Bible still? I'm going to need that. So I had my Bible. I've still got it. It's right there. And I started going to church and I took Holy Communion. And that changed everything. I took it twice, I think. I had it once and I was a bit nervous. I didn't know what to do. So it was a bit clouded. But the second time, I knew exactly what I was doing. And I went up and they said a prayer over me and I sipped the wine. And then I took the bread and I went back down and sat at the pew and I'm literally holding it. And I'm like, this is Jesus. Like, this is really him. I was like, I don't deserve to eat this. I could just feel I didn't deserve it. I didn't know why. I couldn't give you an answer. But I was like, I really didn't deserve to eat this. And I ate it and I had to swallow it, get it in. And I just wanted to cry. I just wanted to cry my eyes out. And I held it together for the whole service for a full hour. I kept my head down. And then the people afterwards were like, oh, we're going to go and get coffee. Do you want to come? I was like, no, thank you. I'm so sorry. I've got plans because I want to go home and cry. I literally was like, as soon as I got in my car, as soon as that door was shut, and I drove home and I was like, I'm so in love with Jesus. My heart was like wide open. I felt the softening of my heart that the Bible talks about, how I will give you a new heart. I was like, it was happening. And I just cried the whole way home. Went home, sat on my sofa, cried some more. I was so in love and it was so painful, but it was glorious.
And so I think this leads us to the second encounter you had with Jesus, which was a lot more intense than the first one. So can you tell the full story of what happened?
It was not long after this. I was going to bed and I felt that wave again, which I hadn't felt since the first time. This wave of love come into the room and I was like, I don't know what that is. Like, is it me? I was like, I know that feeling. I was like, oh, that love that you don't see in the world. And I opened my eyes and Jesus is standing at the foot of my bed And it was so real and so different this time, because now he's not New Age Jesus. He's not Archangel Jesus. He's like the man I've been reading about. He's the man that I'm in love with. He's the man that they've been preaching about. He's real. He's like a real person. And now he's in my room. And he came with the thorns. And he came with the blood. And he came with the ripped robes. And I'm so in love with this man. I'm seeing, he doesn't look like he's in pain, but I'm looking at him and I'm like, how could they do that to you? That was painful to like sit with that. Like, how could someone do that? I don't understand that. So he's standing there and he just says to me, I'm going to wash your feet. And I was like, oh, please don't. I was like, no, you can't. You cannot wash my feet. I wanted to wash his feet. I was like thinking to myself, please, I wanted to get onto the floor like this. Every knee shall bow. Every knee shall bow. I wanted to get down. And he was like, he just didn't see. I was like, please don't. And he just walks up to my bed and he sort of crouches down a bit and he places his hands on my feet and stays there for a moment. And then he stands up and he walks to the left side of my bed. I'm laying on the left. And he just goes like this. And I can see these markings here. And I can see the blood. And he just says, hands down, palms up. Like, he demonstrated like this. So I went like, put my hands like this. And he just reaches over. And he places left hand on my right and right hand on my left. And I'm like this, and I just see the blood go through onto my hands. I'm like, he's putting blood on my hands. And I hadn't read much of the gospel, so I didn't know what was happening. I was like, am I going crazy? What is going on? There's blood on my hands. And there's his blood on my hands. And then he just moved his hands up, like it went up my arms like this, and he just stayed here for a second. Just like stayed there. And then he put his hands on my face. And he went like this, and then onto my womb. And when he placed his hands on my womb, I was like, I'm forgiven. I knew it. I was like, I'm forgiven. That's the most powerful thing I've ever had in my life. And he washed his hands down my legs, and then he placed them on my feet. And he walked back to the end of the bed. And he just went like this. And there was just suddenly this book, huge book, massive book, like a metallic 3D golden, not real, but real book. And he just opened it and he just placed it like this in front of me. And I'm crying and I'm like looking and I'm thinking, I'm like, what am I looking at? I don't understand. What is this? I don't know what this book is. And I'm looking like, is it the Bible? What is it? But there's no words. It's just a small word. And I'm like, I don't understand. And he's like, come closer, child. And so I sit up and I'm like trying to focus because he's in and out of focus. And I'm looking and my name is there. I'm like, Laura Ansell? I was like, that's me. And he just looked at me and I was like, that's me. Like, I don't understand. You know who I am? I said, but no one knows who I am. But you do. And he just looked at me and he said, you are mine. And I was like, but no one wants me. It's such a strange feeling, like you go your whole life and no one notices you and you go invisible to everyone and no one cares. And then it's like no one ever chooses you. Like I never get chosen. I always get left behind. And then here he is. And he knows me. And I was like, he's probably known me this whole time. And no one ever chooses me, but he's chosen me. I was like, oh, I'm good. I don't care now. No one else can choose me. I don't care. No one wants me. That's fine, because Jesus does. I'm good. Someone knows who I am. And that was like my whole, I don't know, I changed. I was like, that's me. And I remember saying to him, like, because my hands felt like lead, like I was flopped on my bed, like my hands were so heavy. And I was like, I really want to ask a question, but I didn't feel worthy to speak to him. But I also felt so loved and worthy at the same time. It's such a strange feeling. And I was like, can I ask a question? He's like, yes. I said, why are my hands so heavy? He said, that is the burden of the cross. That's the weight of the cross. And I'm like, oh, that blew my mind. I was like, okay. And then he walked back to the side of the bed, and I just got to watch him. The blood just left. It disappeared. And he went from the crucified Jesus to the Messiah, the Son of God, like golden, who's glowing. And so I've seen, when he first came to me, he was the resurrected Christ, the white robe, the dove. I've seen all these different versions of him. And now he's just glowing, and he just went like this, and I knew exactly what it meant. I was like, okay, fine. I felt so light at this point because I was like, I'm free. He freed me. He baptized me personally. I was personally baptized by Jesus Christ. I mean, who else? I don't need anything else in life now. I've been baptized by Jesus Christ. So I put my hands down, and he did the same thing. And I saw this gold oil go onto my hands, and he did this, and the gold oil went all the way up my arm. It's like a sparkly, the goldest of gold, just all up my arms, on my heart again, on my face. He looked at me when he touched my face. I was like, I am seen. I'm alive. I felt like I was alive. I'd always felt dead, to be honest, which I know what it means now. I always felt dead. Like, what's the point in this? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm alive. He sees me. And then he drew a cross on my head, marked me with a cross on my forehead, went back down to my womb, gold oil through my womb, all down my legs, down to my feet. And then he just stood there for a moment, and he just disappeared. And I was so confused. Like, half of me was like, did that really just happen? I was shaking. I felt like a feather. My hand still felt like lead. And I'm not gonna lie, it took a minute to process what happened. And as the months went on, that was when I really read the Gospels. And I read how he washed people's feet. I was like, that's a thing. I love it. He did it, and then he backed it up with the Bible. That's powerful. I didn't read it first and then have the experience. No, he did this, and then I read the Gospel, and then I read about his ministry. Oh, he washes the feet of his disciples. Oh, God's children are marked on the forehead, then sealed. People are anointed. People are washed clean with the blood of Christ. I was like, oh, this is a thing. He backed everything up with his word. I was marked, I was sealed, and I was baptized. And I gave up everything for him. It's like, what do you want from me? I'm yours. 100%. I was always so good at dedicating my life to a man. And now I can actually dedicate my life to a man that wanted me for a start. That felt nice. But also that I could just pour my love into it, and it can be received and poured back. And I just gave up everything. And then I deleted all my social medias. I didn't care. 500,000 followers, couldn't care less. Delete. I want to delete everything that was associated with my whole life after that.
That's an incredible story. How long between the first encounter on the beach and this one that you talked about? How much time was in between? Because it seemed like all of this happened fairly quickly.
It was about 7 months.
And is there anything else that happened after, like after that encounter?
Yes, but I mean that's probably a whole other podcast, a whole other testimony, warfare. I gave everything up. So I was still going to church. I was studying a lot. I found a really good Bible study. And I wanted to dedicate my life to the Lord. I didn't want anything that wasn't from him. So whatever it was, whatever blessing I was going to receive in my life, it had to come from him. And I gave him everything. I said, okay, Lord, you're in charge of my finances. You're in charge of my business. You're in charge of my friendships. You're in charge of my family, everything. I gave everything over. And so with the business, it was like, okay, I'm giving you my business because it's not really flowing the way it used to. And so I'm like, it's probably because I'm not supposed to do this anymore. I wasn't doing spiritual stuff. I was doing like coaching and relationship coaching and things, but I wasn't enjoying it. And I was like, Lord, if you want to renew it, like, here you go. Take it. Like there's a big following there. So maybe you can do something with it. And the weeks went on. I'm like, you haven't restored it. Like, do you want me to do something? And after a while, I'm like, oh, I see. You're not going to restore it. You want me to destroy it. And you can't destroy it for me. It has to be my choice. And I knew if I was willing to give that up, I could build a life with him. So I just deleted everything. Came off social media, deleted my website, stopped making money. I had to give up my house in the end because I didn't have any money. So I didn't have a house. I didn't have a home. I didn't have any money. I had no prospects, no job, no relationship. So I was not really afraid to start from scratch for him. It didn't scare me. It scared me more to keep hold of things. And I knew he'd restore things in his image, in the way that he wanted it done, and in the best way for everyone. And so I was willing to be obedient to that. So after that, I just gave everything up. And I learned to lean on him. And I learned to make him everything. And I was very well taken care of by him. Still am.
It's kind of very counterintuitive, right? That to give up, like to have the life that not that you want, but that you should have, you have to give up everything that you currently have that was built. That was not necessarily dishonestly, because I think when you were doing it, you were honest and you thought that it was helping people, but you have to get rid of the old life to build a completely new one. And it's just interesting how that works. But your story is powerful. I think I could say that word very confidently. The ending is quite unique, and I just love to hear the story from you. But I feel very privileged to be able to hear this, and hopefully the viewers as well. But I want to give you a chance at the end to say, like, there's probably going to be a decent amount of people that watch this. To everyone that's watching, is there a message that you want to tell them?
Like all the podcasts I've done, people resonate with different parts of the story. But a lot of people resonate with the fact that of that feeling of loneliness that I felt. That is the feeling, that's like the place in your heart where Jesus is meant to be, where knowing your identity in Christ is meant to be. If you don't know your identity in Christ, you'll look for it in other things. You'll make your job your identity. You'll make your relationship your identity, your sexuality your identity. And it's not. Your identity is in Christ. Your identity is in the one that created you. And until you know him, you walk around with like this stone heart, looking for all these ways of like filling this emptiness. And there's this calling that so many of us can feel, that we know there's something more. I hear that all the time. I know there's something more. I know I'm supposed to do something. That was me my whole life. And I know I'm supposed to do something more than what I'm doing now. And the answer is yes. And so I would just encourage everyone that he will absolutely take care of you. I am so taken care of. And people hear my story and like, wait a minute, you gave me a business, you lost all your money, you didn't even have a house, and you're telling me that that's the right path? No, let me tell you something. Okay, yes, I did do that. But my life started to like unfold. And suddenly I had people around me and I wasn't alone anymore. People were being nice to me suddenly. Like people were really seeing me and I could really see them. And something that he's asked me to do is he said to me after a year of rest, he said, I want you to go back to the places you were and bring my children home. And so I've made it part of my mission to to reach as many people as I can that know what it feels like to be lonely and lost and empty and feeling like no one likes you, bringing them to Jesus, or at least giving them the feeling of Jesus when they meet me. Because I'm not him, but I have met him. And he did touch me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Almost False podcast. If you have a curious mind like me, you would have noticed that Laura talked about a story of spiritual warfare that merited its own episode. Well, that did not fall in deaf ears, so I asked her about all of that in the after show, which is available to the members on our website. That part of her story is actually very, very interesting, and believe it or not, she told me about spirits I had never heard of before, which has actually become quite rare after all the stories I've heard on this podcast. Like I said, it's on our website, almostfalls.net. We have a bunch of exclusive content for you there, most of it being free to listen to, like the beginning of this conversation where Laura talked about the ghost children living in her house when she was a kid. If you want to know about it, you have to go there. The link is also in the description. But thank you for staying till the end with me. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you appreciated this episode as well. Wherever you are in the world, have a good rest of your day and stay blessed.